Okay, we'll be using a software called FamilySearch. Some of you have loaded that already, I think, and trying to tell the story of ancestors. Actually, this is part of my story. I've done this dozens of times in the last couple of weeks. I haven't been satisfied with any of them, so I'm going to give it one last shot here. Forgive me if I'm slow, but I want to get all the screens right and push the right buttons at the right time. So here we go. Now we're going to talk first about history of the Swiss area. The tribe that inhabited this area first was the Helvetia, and Helvetia actually was the name of Switzerland for a long time. And here's a coin of the early Helvetii tribe. They came to the area because of the terrain. The mountains surrounded this area and offered them some protection. But even so, they were overrun and conquered by the Romans in the 1st century BC. The Romans were gone by the 2nd century AD, and then Charlemagne came in and conquered the area. And with Charlemagne came the Holy Roman Empire, of course. And after that, the Habsburgs came and really enslaved the people. So William Tell was the one who is a Swiss hero and delivered the people from the Habsburg tyranny. And here's a statue dedicated to William Tell. There was so much conflict and so much fighting that the soldiers in among the Swiss people became very fine soldiers and very sought after by the kings of Europe. Pope Julius II in 1506 hired 200 of these soldiers to be his Swiss Guard. And this Swiss Guard, and there's a picture of the uniform, this Swiss Guard is the oldest and continuously operating military unit in the world. And here's another picture. These uniforms, I think, probably are the original ones, or the original design. In 1291, there was the Charter of 1291, and it ushered in the area of the Swiss Confederation. The three political units that were the original in the Federation were, in the middle of your map there, Unterwalden, Uri, and Schweiz. And these three were joined later by the other cantons that you see, including Bern. Bern is where our ancestor lived. Our ancestor was, the first one was, at least in the family that take this Fankhauser name, was Hans zum Fanghaus. The word Fang in German, F-A-N-G, means capture, trap. In Swiss, the Swiss dialect is F-A-N-K, and that's unique to the Swiss dialect, I guess. And it means capture pit. He was the person who captured bears. And the bears were predators and wreaked havoc with livestock. Now we go on to crests. This is the one that's associated in this family tree with the first person, Hans zum Fanghaus. There are 5 of them that I've seen. The one that I grew up with is this one. It has a ram on the top there. My granddaughter found this one on the right. And here's another one, Fankhauser. And the one that we use, of course, is this one. Well, let's go over to FamilySearch. Let's see if I can get there correctly. Here we go. And here is a fan chart. A fan chart is a way to display all the ancestors, and you can see a bunch of them all at once. It's become one of my favorites. Right now, I'd like to focus on Christian Fankhauser. Now, Christian Fankhauser was in the 1600s, and we won't take the time to go clear over there, and you can move this tree and go in different places, but I've just made his page right here in another tab. Chris and Fankhauser was an Anabaptist. The Anabaptists were illegal in Bern, in the Bern canton in the 1600s. The state religion of Bern was Protestant. And so Chris and Fankhauser was fined, and he was imprisoned, he was exiled, and here's what he did in his house. He built a trap door that led to the attic, and he and other Anabaptists and Mennonites, which were part of the Anabaptists, could hide. I'd like to point out this article, a picture of the article here, Chris and Fankhauser, published in www.wikitree.com. Excellent, excellent article. And when you get your tree loaded, I recommend that you look at that article. Just a word about these memories. You can add an audio file, a story, or a file. Now, the things that I've added here are stories, or files. These two are files. This one actually is a story. And it has a link there to direct you to that other website. All right, so we'll go back to the fan chart here. And I'm going to start with Johann Ulrich Fankhauser. Now I'm going to put him at the center of my fan chart. See how that changes? Now we've got Johann Ulrich Fankhauser. Instead of fan chart, I think I'm going to go to the descendancy chart so that we can see how all of the descendants work together. All right, here are the children. In our family reunion, we focus on Peter Fankhauser. He's a single entry. And Johannes Fankhauser. There are 19 children there. Of the 19, we record only 14. And the reason is that some did not have descendants. And with Fankhauser, you can see 1890 to 1890. Uncle Hans was a bachelor. He doesn't have any descendants. And we can tell that because there's no arrow here by the line. So let's go to look at some of these. Let's focus on Pearl Fankhauser. He's the wife, or she is the wife of my grandfather, Will. And here's Pearl, and I'm going to go to her page. I can click on her. This brings up a thing, a box, places that I can go. I can display her tree. I can display details about her. Right now I'm going to display memories because I'd like to focus on that for just the next few minutes. Here's a picture, and remember we talked about adding memories. Here are lots of pictures. Here's Pearl in 1910, Humboldt basketball team. She's 17 at the time. These are interesting. These are books, a list of expenditures for the farm in 1925 and 1922. This is after Will and Pearl had been married. Picture of Grandma in 1964. Let's take a look at the farm. Now these pictures are interesting things about these pictures. It's you can tag people to them. You can also expand them, make them larger, and you can pan the picture once it's larger. There's another way you can make it larger. I wanted to talk about Pearl's mother, Sophie. We saw her in the pictures, and we'll get to those pictures later and see more of her. But anyway, she lived with Pearl and Will for a long while until her death. She married at 19. She married Louis Kinder, who was only 16. They had 4 children, later divorced. Sophie moved back here and lived with Pearl and Will until 1951, when the house burned. She burned in the house and lost her life. And after the house was burned, Sophie and her son Dick and daughter Joanne moved into this part of the shed and lived there until they could afford to buy another house and have it moved and set on the old foundation. After Sophie died, Pearl and Dick. I'm sorry, Pearl, Dick, and Joanne continue to farm. Now, Pearl's husband, Will, died about in 1942, and so they had run the farm since then and continued to run it after the house was destroyed by fire. Let's go back and look at another picture here, one of my favorites, beautiful portrait of a 4-generation chart. Now, I mentioned the the tags, but they're especially useful for tagging people in portraits or snapshots even. So here's Sophie at a younger age, of course, and here's my dad. Here's Grandma Pearl, and here's Grandpa Leopold in a 4-generation chart. And it strikes me the care with which the artist composed this picture and how he got that baby to sit still for that long enough to take a picture is remarkable in itself, but wonderful picture, one of my treasured memories. Next, I'd like to show you another really cool memory. This is a souvenir from a celebration of a graduating class. I'm not sure it was a graduating class, but anyway, if another thing that's possible here is to select different tools. I'm going to select the hand tool, which will allow me to move this PDF file around a little bit, and I can make it larger, focus in. I'd like to focus in on these pupils. Of course, Pearl was the teacher, but Helen, Uncle Dan, here's my Uncle Garth. It's Pearl's younger brother. And look at all of these school officers. William. That's pretty good. Now let's see, one more picture here. And this is this picture. Here's Sophie and Pearl and Dick and Garth. Again, that's Pearl's younger brother, and Joanne. Now, this was about 1950, before the house burned. You can see the house in the background there. All right, let's let's go on. Next, we'd like to look at some other things that are possible here. I'm going to go to a website now called relativefinder.org and show you some things about cousin relationships that are sometimes kind of hard. I'm going to sign in with my FamilySearch ID here, and we'll take a look at authors and poets. Now, I found out that I'm related to William Shakespeare. Here's an example of cousin relationships. This is another option. You can show the country in which they were born. So anyway, I'm related to William Shakespeare, and my relationship shows here first cousin 14 times removed. Well, here are his grandparents. Here are his parents. And notice that his parents are a brother and sister. And here's William Shakespeare. So I've got common ancestor, brother and sister, and then first cousin. So I'm first cousin at this level. Now his descendants stop at that point, according to this family tree. But I'm 14 times removed now. If I want to take the time, I could count all these boxes, and I would be the 14th box down here. And that's how cousin relationships work. Now let's go to the FamilyTree app that you have. And I'd like to have you look at the FamilyTree app on your phone. Now I have these pictures are taken on, screenshots rather, taken on an Android phone. And so here's a picture of what you'll see. This again is a fan chart. That reminds me, let me show you one other thing about this Spicer Center Schoolhouse. That is that when the school was discontinued, there was a clock that Grandma rescued, and I inherited that clock and made some repairs and so forth. But I'd like to show you that clock that was in that school 100 years ago and more, and it's still ticking. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear it tick. So get rid of that clock so it doesn't impede this other thing. Now we'll go back to the FamilyTree app. All right, so the second thing we do, and again, here's the menu up here at the top left corner. If you have an iPhone, it may be a little bit different, but it should be similar. And then the next place is relatives around me. Click on that, and then we'll scan for relatives here. And this is something that works with location services. So you have to be within 100 meters of another one that has the app. And so the idea is to see who around you is related to you. I did this in church last Sunday, and here's a list of 19 people that are related to me, and they're all kind of distant cousins. It's kind of cool that they're related. And I chose Liz Erickson, for example. If I click on Liz, I can see this chart that shows that she's my 8th cousin. Here's common ancestor at the top. And as you look at the top, and then if you count down, you'll count down 8 times, and then you'll count down where I stop, count down another 2. So that's our 8th cousin, twice removed, and that's our relationship. So you can see those on yours, and I encourage you to look at all of those things on FamilyTree and FamilySearch, and be sure to make stories. Again, these memories are so precious, and what a wonderful way to retain them. And just so you know, these are retained again, it's sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and these records are continuously restored. In other words, ongoing. All of these memories will be there hundreds of years later. And so they're safe. And it's a good place to keep your memories. Right now, we'll go on to the next part of the program, which I believe is singing.